Okay.
On the tuition waivers, tell me a little about how this came about. Is this kind of are we at the Hail Mary point trying to get trying to improve enrollment, or?
This has become a much more competitive environment for recruiting students, and we're seeing more and more students going out of state from Illinois to other campuses. And a lot of the Big Ten schools have started to have alternative tuition for high-achieving students. And just the last couple of weeks, Michigan State announced their alternative tuition for high-achieving students. Iowa is very aggressive, as are other states, Indiana as well. So we are just trying to level the playing field and compete in a very, very competitive environment.
Now, this was just a notice item for procedure. Is this going to allow you to go ahead and get started with that, or will you need to come back to the board for approval?
Unfortunately, it does not allow us. We will either go to the executive committee or to the full board for final approval.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the alumni services building? It's going to be a $30 million building. I can't remember. Is this something that's going to be, the money's going to be raised completely through the fundraising, or are there any student fees involved in this one? I can't.
100% private funding.
Okay. When does the campaign in earnest kind of kick off for this?
That will be a discussion with the foundation and alumni boards when they're on campus in October. And we have some preparation work to do to develop the case statement and the materials, but private conversations are already taking place for lead gifts.
Okay. Is there any sort of timeline established yet for when you'd like to have the funding in hand or the building completed, or has that been developed yet, or is that still in flux?
There is no set timeline. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement. And we have this as part of our next major campaign, so it wouldn't be the only thing we're fundraising for, but there's a lot of momentum going for this project.
Several years ago, Caleb, when this issue came up, and we were working with the Alumni Association, they wanted to build this building out on Campus Lake near the technology buildings, and we disapproved that because we didn't want any more buildings built around the lake. And so this is a more perfect location, right at the entrance of the university.
Are there still, I know in the past there were talks about having some classroom buildings out in that area. Is that still on the table?
Yes, this does not take all of the footprint in that general area. The master plan that the President developed includes academic and research space in that area, and that's still very possible as funding comes forward for those needs.
There were some conversations today about a need for this university and universities in general to begin creating, I guess, new revenue resources. And outside of tuition and fees, where is really the freedom for public universities to generate additional revenue?
Well, I think when you look at the budget that we approved today, each line item on that budget page, if it's appropriated funds, those are going to continue to go down. Particularly, we'll be charged with picking up the cost for the pension reforms. That'll be transferred to the universities rather than to the individuals. And that will take us down several more $1 million in terms of our operating funds once that happens. So on that appropriation side, it's negative. There's no question about it. We can only raise tuition and fees to a certain extent before that starts impacting, as it already has, our ability to enroll students. When you consider the sequestration issue, that's going to cut back sizably on our research grants. And so at almost every level, the university is looking at less money coming from the federal and state government. So I think the suggestion was, what can we do in lieu of that to make up for those losses? And it's going to be difficult. We need more private-public partnerships. Maybe, as Chairman Wiley indicated, we need to start looking at entrepreneurship opportunities to go out and maybe, run our own businesses or just explore these opportunities. And certainly our foundations are going to have to pick up the slack for getting more scholarship money and those sort of things into the university. There's a number of areas we can look at, but I think it's a given over the next several years, without solving the budget crisis at the federal and the state level, we're looking at all of our normal sources of revenue going down.
But how creative can you get with this? I mean, do you send people out on the streets with the hot dog stands? Can you do this kind of thing, selling pushing hot dogs to people? I mean,
that.
but I mean, there's additional way. Do you get more aggressive with some of the things that already do bring in revenue outside of tuition and fees? Or
as a research university, we have the opportunity to have more licensing fees and revenue generated from the innovations that are created every single day on our campus. So it's to find ways to capitalize on that, partner with the local community to create businesses and take an investment in those businesses. And the outreach that we do in online learning. That's one of the growth areas on both of our campuses, and the opportunity to reach a set of students that would not normally take our courses, that may be place-bound, may be looking for additional education and can't leave their homes. So those are just little examples, but there are others that are much more aggressive, but clearly using the assets that we have, leveraging that, working with the community, and finding ways to support the things that we hold dear.
does that, in terms of technology, patents, and things like that are created at the university, does that give the university some leeway to take on a little bit more of a venture capitalist role in some capacity?
Through our research
In some
parks,
ways.
yes.
I think the first step we should take is to hire those students who presented today. They had some pretty good answers.
Along those same lines, tuition and fee affordability, higher education affordability, with the federal government cutting back on its obligations to higher education funding, what do you see Congress, what do you see the state legislature doing in terms of limiting where you can raise tuition and where you can raise fees?
I think it's coming. I do think it's coming. It seems to me there's a disconnect between the federal government and the state governments when it comes to who's to blame for higher tuition. We're being told at the federal level now that we're going to put mandates on tuition increases and that sort of thing as a part of, solving the budget problem. But really, the problem has been caused by the state abdicating their responsibility toward higher education. So it's almost like, we're going to have to take on the task, but someone's skipping over actually getting at the real problem.
Will you be blurring the lines at that point between public and private university if you can't raise public dollars? I mean, and you've got to go to the private sector to raise money. Do you lose that unique piece of a public education?
Jennifer, I've said for years that we are privatizing public education now, and we are. So, we're getting closer and closer every year to the private model, and it's going to be in time only people of a certain economic wherewithal that's going to be able to afford to send their kids to college if this continues the way it is. This country's got to reinvest, and in many ways, I think President Obama is trying to do that, but it's got to reinvest in education and research and the things that built the country to begin with. But we see more of that non-discretionary funding being attacked at the federal level. So I don't think we're going to lose that sense of independence, but I do think we're going to be coming under more and more pressure to conform to what basically are private university policies. And that's certainly not good for a university like ours.
Did you have any notice that there is an investigation or a complaint filed beyond what you already knew with Ms. Turpin?
No, I had no knowledge. I learned a while ago that I had a little trouble hearing her, but did she say that the Attorney General is going to investigate me?
Apparently, she has filed a complaint with the Office of the Executive Inspector General and the
Okay.
Attorney General's office. I wondered if either of those offices had contacted the university in terms of doing any sort of investigation.
Not to my knowledge. I don't have any idea what Ms. Turpin is charging me with, or what charges she's bringing forward to these officers.
This seems like it's gone on for so long. At some point, can't we all just sit down and say, here's how we can work this out? Is the university working to do that at all? I mean, it's almost,
Chairman,
what,
you wanna
13
respond to
years?
At this point, we would rather not make comments.